Admiral Kethvar of the Zilithian Collective adjusted his ceremonial armor as he gazed upon the diplomatic vessel approaching through the void. The humans had requested this meeting at the neutral Kepler station, a gesture he found both amusing and insulting. Did these primitive mammals truly believe they could negotiate with the might of 3 star systems? "Sir," his aide whispered, "their ship is smaller than expected." Kethavar's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. The human vessel was indeed modest, a sleek diplomatic cruiser that would fit comfortably in his flagship's cargo bay. After 6 months of tense border skirmishes, he had expected something more imposing from a species that dared challenge Zilithian expansion. The negotiations began cordially enough. Ambassador Sarah Chen, a middle-aged woman with steel-gray hair and calm eyes, sat across from Kethvar in the station's neutral conference chamber. Her small delegation consisted of only 3 others, while Kethvar had brought 12 of his finest military advisors. "The collective appreciates humanity's willingness to discuss territorial boundaries," Kethvar began, his translator converting his chittering speech into standard galactic. "However, you must understand that the Rigel sectors are vital to our expansion protocols." Ambassador Chen smiled politely. "We understand your position, Admiral. However, those sectors contain 14 human colonies with a combined population of 47 million souls. Surely we can reach an arrangement that respects both our people's needs." "Souls?" Kethvar's translator struggled with the concept. "You speak of numbers as if they carry weight. The collective has relocated billions during our expansion. Your few millions are insignificant." The human ambassador's expression never changed, but something flickered in her eyes. "Every human life is significant to us, Admiral. Perhaps that's a concept your people haven't encountered before." 3 days of negotiations followed. The humans offered trade agreements, technological exchanges, even joint colonial ventures. Kethvar found their proposals increasingly tedious. These creatures spoke endlessly of cooperation and mutual benefit when the solution was obvious: submit to Zilithian authority or face the consequences. On the 4th day, Kethvar's patience finally expired. "Enough," he declared, rising from the negotiation table. "The collective grows weary of these pointless discussions. You will evacuate the Rigel sectors within 30 standard days, or we will evacuate them for you." Ambassador Chen remained seated, her hands folded calmly on the table. "Admiral, I urge you to reconsider. Humanity values peace, but we are not defenseless." Kethvar's mandibles clicked again. "Your fleet scattered before our scouts in every encounter. 1 human colony ship destroyed, 3 mining stations captured, and your military vessels fleeing at first sight of our hunters. What defense could you possibly offer?" "We haven't shown you our defense yet," Chen replied quietly. "Those were evacuations, not defeats. We were buying time." "Time for what? To beg more convincingly?" The ambassador stood slowly. "Time to bring the vindication." Kethvar had never heard the word before, but his translator seemed to struggle with its implications. The human delegation filed out without another word, leaving the Zilithians to contemplate this cryptic final statement. 2 weeks later, Kethvar understood. The collective's 3rd fleet, 67 ships of the line, the pride of Zilithian military might, had assembled at the edge of the Rigel sectors. Kethvar commanded from his flagship Swarm's edge, confident that this display of overwhelming force would finally convince the humans to see reason. Then she appeared. The ship that emerged from hyperspace was unlike anything in Kethvar's tactical databases, where Zilithian vessels were sleek and organic-looking, built for speed and swarm tactics. This human warship was a fortress of angular steel and brutal purpose, nearly 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapon systems that defied classification. She hung in space like a mechanical predator. "This is Captain Marcus Rivera of the UHS Vindication," came the transmission. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from human space before I interpret your presence as an act of war." Kethvar's tactical officer was frantically scanning the massive vessel. "Sir, I'm reading weapon signatures I don't recognize. Energy patterns that exceed our measurement capabilities. And, sir, she's alone. 1 ship. 1 human ship facing his entire fleet. You mock us with this display," Kethvar transmitted back. 1 vessel against 67? Even your diplomats showed more sense than this. "Diplomacy was our first choice," Rivera replied. "You made this our second." The Vindication moved with impossible grace for something so massive. Point defense lasers, thousands of them, began tracking every Zilithian vessel simultaneously. Missile tubes that could launch projectiles the size of small ships opened like hungry mouths. Most disturbing of all, weapon systems the Zilithians couldn't even identify began charging with ominous purpose. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "our battle computers can't calculate firing solutions. Her defensive systems are jamming everything. It's like she's not even there." Kethvar's confidence wavered. In 3 centuries of conquest, the collective had never encountered anything like this. "Open fire! All vessels! Destroy that ship!" What followed could barely be called a battle. The Vindication's point defense network turned the Zilithian missile barrage into fireworks. Energy beams that should have cracked her hull barely scratched her armor. And when she returned fire, the first Zilithian destroyer simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding plasma and debris. Then another, and another. Kethvar watched in growing horror as his fleet, his magnificent fleet, was systematically dismantled by weapons he couldn't understand, operated by a species he had dismissed as primitives. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were making a statement written in the wreckage of Zilithian pride. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, voice cracking with fear, "Captain Rivera is hailing us again." "This is your only warning," came the human captain's voice, calm and professional, even as he obliterated an entire fleet. "Withdraw from human space. Cease all hostile actions against human colonies. And remember this day when you consider whether our diplomacy was weakness or mercy." Of Kethvar's 67 ships, only 12 remained functional enough to limp home. The Vindication watched them go, neither pursuing nor gloating, simply ensuring they understood the lesson. As his damaged flagship jumped to hyperspace, Kethvar finally grasped what Ambassador Chen had been trying to tell him. Humanity had offered diplomacy first, not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to choose their battles. They valued peace not because they feared war, but because they knew exactly what they were capable of when peace failed. The collective would remember the Vindication, and they would never again mistake human diplomacy for human limitation.